Hey, party people. I finished the tank. And things go a lot faster when I'm not trying to narrate a tutorial the whole time. So here we go. First thing I did was split up the lining. Top lining, bottom lining. And that's because lining is supposed to help support the shell. And I wanted something more structural on the top and more drapey on the bottom so it wouldn't like tent out the shape, that it would relax nicely against my stomach and my torso. But I wanted the structure around the shoulder straps and the armhole and the neckline, especially after I mutilated everything with my first go around. So I have the completely does not stretch go anywhere 100% cotton for the top, and then a slinky rayon Bemberg for the bottom. And in a perfect world, the Bemberg would be black. But again, I was trying to make this without buying anything. And here are the three fabrics together. I think they work fine. You know, it's not like it's some random purple or red lining. They're all in the gray, black family. So I think it's fine. The next thing I did was test a couple of fusibles that I had in the studio because, yeah, you always want to test whatever fusible, see what it looks like on the reverse. Make sure it doesn't look too stiff. Make sure you can't see the edges of where the fusing stops too much. This one that I'm touching right now, you can see the edges pretty clearly. So yeah, I didn't like that one the most. And they're both fairly thin fusibles, but I went with the even thinner one because you can kind of see the borders of the fusible, but a lot less than the other. So I went with this thinner one. It's a knit fusible, and so it is fairly stretchy. It just gives a little bit of extra support. It doesn't make things like super stiff like a Hymo or like a really stiff non-woven fusible. But I did have to make pattern pieces for the interfacing, and so I took the self pattern, I carved out 1/8 of an inch off the edges, and then I drew the shape. I just kind of wanted to cover the neckline, the armhole, and the shoulders. And you want that 1/8 of an inch difference so that when you're laying the piece down on your self fabric, you have a little bit of wiggle room to lay things down, and you fuse with no steam. Do not fuse with steam. And I just had some wrinkled paper, and I did iron the paper. Again, no steam. So I do use scrap paper, dry iron it to smooth it out and reuse it. And here is the self with all my messed up stitching, and I fused the top. And when I was cutting out this rayon, I used silk pins. The red-headed one, it has glass tops, and it's much skinnier than my standard yellow quilting pins, which is the plastic top. And yeah, so when I'm using slinky, delicate fabrics, I prefer to use the silk pins. So sewing the lining onto the shell, take two. Okay, I only did the cotton first. I didn't sew the rayon onto the bottom lining part yet. And I'm sewing a fat quarter, which means the edge of the fabric is hitting that 1 on the 1/4 mark and not the line next to it. Because remember, I have to like give myself a fat seam allowance to kind of cover up the holes. And you see, I have successfully covered up the holes with my fat 1/4 of an inch. I'm always extra proud of myself when I hit those like matching seams. And then you want to give it a good understitch. The seam allowance for the leather and the cotton are under the cotton, and you sew those 3 layers together. It gives the seam an edge, more structure. It's stronger, which I especially need because of all the extra holes in the leather I have right now. And it makes the lining lay flat and not roll over to the shell. So I did the understitching all around the neck, front and back. before I moved on to the armhole. And I'm not going to do a tutorial on the burrito method. There's tons of tutorials online for the burrito method. Here's the thing though. And here I'm doing a fat 1/2 inch seam allowance because of the whole stitching debacle. One of the reasons why I had wanted the knit lining before was I thought that it would be an easier time to do the burrito method if I had a stretchy lining. As you can see here, it's impossible. Like I couldn't pull all the fabric through. Now, if I had a stretchy lining or something with more give, if I had a wider shoulder strap, which was my original pattern, then maybe I could have pulled through with a burrito method. But I could not, despite my best efforts. So I actually just opened up like a 10-inch section in the middle, which gives me enough thoroughfare to use the burrito method, modified burrito method, and roll the whole thing inside out. Okay. And then you have to go in and stitch that up. And so what I ended up doing was pressing the armhole that I had sewn. You got to clip the seam allowance, especially around those like really steep armpit curves. And then kind of fold in the seam allowance and press it down. And then top stitch. And I didn't want it to be like a random top stitch. I wanted it to be part of the design. So I actually did a 1/4 inch and I squared it off neatly so it looks like a design element, like cordoned off, sectioned identical, 1/4 inch, just right at the shoulder. So it looks purposeful, not just like, let me cover up this mistake I made. Secrets between us. And then after that, I sewed on the bottom lining parts. Okay. And then after that, we sewed the side seams, and then I did a 1/2 inch top stitch for the hem as a guide to help me fold it up. And then I tucked in, well, I ironed it too. Okay, so holding it down with my fingers, using a pressing cloth, dry iron only, because I'm only dry ironing leather from like after the initial wrinkle pressing. Dry iron only on the leather, always using a pressing cloth. I folded and ironed up the hem for the leather. And then I tucked in the lining. Clamp, 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 clamp. You know, I like to use clamps and not pins when I'm working with leather. And then I just top stitched all the way around. Were there a lot of different ways I could have done the hem? Yeah, but at this point, I was kind of over it. And here we go. And after all that, I really like how it turned out. It's been kind of chilly here in LA, so this is going to be my favorite new layering piece. I really like how it turned out. I already know the pattern revisions I want to make because I like this body enough that I want to make other versions of this in different fabrications. I know I had mentioned the whole denim scrap, Workbook sort of experimentation that I've been wanting to do, that I've been collecting old denim and stuff like that and scraps for this potential future project. I'm probably going to make myself a denim Workbook tank using this pattern, but I am going to go in and widen the strap again because I think I want it even more than I had it initially. And then I think it's just the way I'm standing that the hem is raised at the top. I think I'm just like arching my back and kind of leaning back a little bit because it doesn't look like that on the hanger. So I think I'm just going to leave the hem alone, but I am going to change up the hem allowance to make for a better hemming situation. I do have other leathers in my studio, so I might make a different leather one, or I might make another black leather one, but a better one. But I love how this turned out. Thanks for following me on this journey, and I will see you in the next video. Drop me your questions, throw me a heart, all that good stuff. Happy Friday.